Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church, Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Today I want to talk about a very special and somewhat unusual saint in the Orthodox Church, Mother Maria Skoptsova of Paris. Today, July 20th, is her feast, and sometimes her feast is dwarfed by the fact that she is celebrated on the same day today as the great prophet Elijah, or Elias. So we're going to focus on Mother Maria today. She was born in 1889 in Latvia. She grew up in a very pious home. Her father and mother were very committed Orthodox Christians. But when her father passed away unexpectedly when she was 14 years old, Maria lost her faith. And she turned to other things to fill that void that was created when she turned her back on Christ and the Church. She got involved heavily in social circles. She, at the age of 18, married a Bolshevik. She also became very involved in poetry, academia, and things like this. And she found herself, however, after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1923, having to flee her country for Paris. Her first marriage ended in disaster. She had a son and a daughter in the marriage, but everything fell apart. She divorced, moved to Paris, took the children there. And in 1926, her daughter died unexpectedly. So at this point, Mother Maria decided that she was going to devote all of her time to working to care for and serve the poor. That's what she wanted to do with the rest of her days. So she began to do that work more intensely. She opened a house, kind of like a hostel, to house people who needed a place to stay. At the height of her ministry, she was serving 120 hot dinners a day, most of it by herself. She would beg for the food, she would prepare for the food, she did her best to distribute the food. There were a couple others, including her son, who helped her with this, but she really was devoting herself to caring for the poor as much as she possibly could. In the early 1930s, when her second marriage dissolved, she was tonsured a nun. She, at this point, then, began to pour herself more intensely, not only into her work to caring for the poor, but into her prayerfulness. This place where she had this home to house people, there was a chapel there, and she actually embroidered the iconography for the chapel. So she, when I say that she poured herself into her work, into every aspect of it, she used all of her time, all of her waking hours in the service of other people. Well, when the war hit, World War II hit, Mother Maria took on kind of a different ministry. She began trying to help to protect and save the Jews. And so she, for example, would try to help get them to the south of France, where they would be protected. She actually was a part of a group that was creating false baptismal certificates so that the Jews could use these to protect themselves as an identification that they were Christian. When there was a big, huge roundup of Jews, almost 13,000 Jews were rounded up at one point, and they were brought to a big sports stadium. And so they were there for 3 days. She would go for 3 days while they were waiting to be exported to Auschwitz. She would go and she would bring food for them, and she would talk to them, she would encourage them, she would remind them of their own human dignity. And then as she was leaving, having served these meals and things, she would sneak some of the Jewish children out in her trash cans, and therefore help them escape their coming demise. Eventually, she was found out, about a year later, that it was found out that she was helping the Jews, and so she herself was brought to an internment camp. And during the 2 years that she spent there, she spent her time leading studies of theology, leading studies of poetry, academic works. I didn't mention, she actually was the first woman ever who was accepted as a student at the Alexander Nevsky Theological Institute in St. Petersburg. So she was very well educated, very theologically sound, and she put her faith to work serving the fellow prisoners there in the internment camp. Now, a few days before the prison camp was liberated by the Allied forces, Mother Maria was brought to the gas chamber where she gave up her life for Christ, for her service to Christ. Some even say that some of the prisoners there said that she actually stepped in line to go to the gas chamber so that another one of the prisoners wouldn't have to. In other words, she gave her life in someone else's stead. So Mother Maria is a sobering example for us of how we can live our lives, and no matter what we've done in our past, how we can turn ourselves to Christ, receive Christ's gift of grace and love, and then shower it on all those around us. Holy Mother Maria, pray unto God for us. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.